Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining our information session today about the Build Fellowship and other options for you on your immigration path post H-1B lottery. So most of you are probably on this call because you did not get the outcome that you wanted from the lottery that happened in the last week. And, the results came out on Monday, and you might be in a moment of stress right now. You might have some anxiety about your current situation, the path ahead. And Jeff and I started Open Avenues Foundation, which now is the Build Fellow, which now has partnered with the Build Fellowship program and launched this whole new initiative to expand the opportunities for you all to stay in the United States on a cap exempt H-1B. We're going to dive into it today, but we are here because we deeply care about creating opportunities for innovators, experts, entrepreneurs from around the world to stay and build careers and companies in the United States and continue to contribute here. You all have much to offer the United States. We know that, and we're excited to dive into different options that you have in this moment. So we're going to start with a couple introductions. I'm Danielle Goldman. I'm co-founder and executive director of Open Avenues Foundation. I'm also CEO of the Build Fellowship. We'll talk about that relationship as we go through this presentation, and we'll talk about the evolution of the Build Fellowship and how we've expanded over the last 6 years. And I'm going to toss it to Jeff, who's going to introduce himself and take us through the first half of this presentation, which is all about options for you post H-1B lottery.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm Jeff Goldman. I am an immigration lawyer practicing in Boston. I've been an immigration lawyer now for 31 years. My law firm only practices immigration law, where we are 28 people, mostly focused on employment-based immigration, and within all of that, specifically focused on venture-backed startups and founders. And as Danielle said, we started thinking about cap-exempt H-1Bs as a solution after I had decades of endless phone calls. Oh my God, I lost the lottery. What am I going to do? And I knew about the solution of partnering with a cap-exempt organization, but nobody had really put it all together and offered it as a service to people who need it. And so that's what Danielle and I have done. We've packaged it all together. We are 100% compliant with the law, and everything is going very smoothly. So we're excited to tell you about the Build Fellowship and how it works. As you know, one of the bigger problems we have is H-1B is the most common work visa option for professional foreign nationals. However, H-1B is limited in number. There's just not enough for everyone who needs them. The H-1Bs are capped at 85,000 every fiscal year, and the demand seems to be exceeding 500,000 at least every fiscal year. And that is why USCIS, the U.S. Immigration Service, has decided to use a lottery system, a totally random lottery system, to pick out the 85,000 winners. In 2024, or fiscal year 2024, that was the lottery held in March of 2023. There were 780,000 registrations, and it led to a 15% selection rate. USCIS knew that a lot of those were fraudulent, duplicative, and they really fixed most of the problem so that in this year's lottery, there really wouldn't be as much fraud. And I think it worked because for fiscal year 2025, which was the lottery conducted last week in March of 2024, there was closer to a 25 to 35% selection rate being reported by immigration lawyers across the country. So what do you do if you've lost the lottery, you have no more OPT, and you have nowhere to go? What can you do? Well, there are just a few options. And the cap exempt H-1B will come to, but there are a few other options you all should know about. An O-1 visa. This is for people who are among the more extraordinary in their fields. The U.S. Immigration Service lists 8 requirements that they will look at. And if you can prove you meet 3 out of the 8 criteria, then you are extraordinary. The 8 criteria are listed all over the internet. They're on my website, and you can look them up. But if you do meet 3 out of 8, or you think you do, you should definitely consider an O1. I offer free consultations to anyone who thinks that they meet 3 out of 8, and you can always reach out to me. The TN visa is only for people who are citizens of Canada or Mexico, and they are working in a STEM profession or possibly 1 or 2 other business-related professions. But the problem with the TN is it's very limited, and it's not meant for entrepreneurs who own their own company. The O1 and the F1, excuse me, the O1 and H-1B and even STEM OPT, they do permit entrepreneurs who have their own company to sponsor themselves. And if you have any questions about that, please ask it. But the TN, you cannot sponsor yourself if you have your own company. An L1 visa is for a multinational company where there's an office in the US, an office outside the US, and they're related to each other. And you have spent at least 1 year out of the past 3 years working at the office outside the US. If that scenario sounds like you might be eligible for an L1 to be transferred to the US entity and work in a professional position. Some people who run out of OPT and they don't qualify for O1, TN, L1, some of them are opting to go back to F1 status by getting a new Form I-20 and looking for what's called Day 1 CPT. CPT is curricular practical training. It means you can begin working off campus for a US employer on day 1 of your new program. There's very few schools that offer day 1 CPT, and some of them are fraudulent. And the US Immigration Service is watching them very closely. So you really should not consider day 1 CPT unless you know the university you're working with absolutely is legitimate. It does offer courses of study other than CPT, and it does graduate students. Then it should be okay. But one of the more interesting options is a cap-exempt H-1B. Now, Congress has declared that there are 4 organizations that are exempt. Danielle, I think I want the next slide. There are 4 organizations that are exempt from the annual cap on H-1Bs. These 4 organizations are universities, government research organizations, nonprofit research organizations, and nonprofits affiliated with the university. These 4 organizations can file H-1B at any time without winning the lottery. They can offer part-time or full-time H-1Bs, and they're called cap-exempt H-1B organizations. Good for those organizations and good for you if you have nowhere else to go, but you're really interested in working full-time for one of these organizations. You can reach out to them, and if they have job openings, you can pursue those opportunities knowing that they're a cap-exempt organization and they could file an H-1B for you without winning the lottery. One of the more interesting parts about a cap-exempt H-1B is the rule that permits concurrent employment. The law states that if you are inside the United States, or actually outside the United States, but you have an approved H-1B petition from one of the 4 cap-exempt organizations, and you have started to work for one of those 4 organizations, either from inside the US or outside, this opens the door for any US entity, company, or organization to immediately file a concurrent H-1B petition for you. for full-time H-1B without winning the lottery. So that's the model that we base the Build Fellowship on. We are working with nonprofit organizations that are affiliated with universities. We are assisting those nonprofits to offer you employment for 5 hours a week to work in a specialty occupation with the nonprofit. And as soon as that H-1B is approved, your company, your startup company, or your regular employer that's waiting to hire you, they can immediately file their own cap-exempt H-1B petition. But the key is this: it must be concurrent, meaning you must keep your employment with the cap-exempt organization for the part-time work. Because if you stop that, the U.S. Immigration Service will immediately void the H-1B they just approved for your startup or your company that you want to be working for full-time.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to hop in, and also, everyone, I want to tell you all a little history of how this has evolved over the last 6 years, because it's part of where we are today with the Build Fellowship program. So Jeff and I started Open Avenues Foundation, which many of you probably have heard of if you're on this call, which is a nonprofit affiliated with many universities around the United States. And over the last 6 years, we've built Open Avenues Foundation to hire foreign nationals for these part-time cap-exempt H-1Bs. And we've had companies sponsor the concurrent full-time visa right on top of our part-time employment that we provide to fellows. And it's been a really successful model in which the nonprofit Open Avenues provides universities with programming, and we partner with companies to have these Build fellows ultimately work for the nonprofit. So it's a really, it's a win-win-win cycle. Now, building off of this success of Open Avenues Foundation, we launched the Build Fellowship as an initiative to increase the number of fellowships available. And this 5 hour per week of part-time employment is now going to be offered at multiple nonprofits that are running Build Fellowship programs. And so while over the last few years, we have had 175 fellows come through the program with a 99% success rate, 1,000 students have been trained by these foreign nationals across 12 colleges and universities. We know that there is a lot more that we will and can and will be doing to offer more fellowship programs. So we have launched a fellowship program at Dream Venture Labs in Boston, and we are launching a program in DC in a couple of weeks. These programs will increase the number of fellowships available. So Open Avenues Foundation will continue to offer fellowships for talent across specialty fields. They're fully remote. The George Washington University and Penn West is a partner in the area in DC. Those will be DC specific. And then Dream Venture Labs will be Boston preferred, but also remote positions as well. So really, when you apply, if you apply for one of the part-time fellowship positions, you would be applying and would get placed at one of these nonprofits, depending on your skill sets, criteria, and your interests. So if you are considering a part-time position, a part-time fellowship, we're looking to make sure you are qualified for an H-1B. So we want to make sure that you have a bachelor's degree or equivalent work experience in a field related to the work that you are going to be doing at your company. So, Jeff always gives an example. If you're a software developer, if you're working as a software developer, but you have an English degree, that's not a good specialty occupation in the United States. If you're a mechanical engineer and you have a mechanical engineering degree, that's an amazing case to be made. It's a no-brainer. You're qualified for an H-1B. There's a lot of nuance in this, finding a specialty occupation for folks with business degrees, which I'm sure many of you on the call have. We have to actually dig into your transcripts and see, is there a concentration of marketing courses? Is there a concentration of finance courses? Are you working in marketing or finance? And can we make that connection? That's how we build a strong case for an H-1B. We often have people say, well, I have a certificate or I have a certain amount of experience working in this field. Can I use that to qualify for an H-1B? And the answer is almost always no. A couple years of work experience in a field, if you have an English degree plus a couple years of coding experience, that doesn't mean you have a good case to be a software developer. We need to see that it actually is the degree that you have that is aligned with the work that you are doing. We want to see that you have a couple years of work experience. Many of you on OPT have this. Anyone who is in any status has been working for a certain amount of time. So that's helpful for us because we need to know that you can spend the time, the 5 hours per week that you're in our program working with students. And we'll get into what that programming is in a few minutes. We're looking for individuals who have experience mentoring or working with students. And this is really important, but it is required that you have a benefactor to pay for this fellowship program. This can be an individual benefactor, or it can be the company in which you are going to be working for. We will also dig into that a little bit more when we get to the financial commitment, who can pay and how they interact with the Build Fellowship. So the process of getting into our fellowship program, we do a 2 to 3 week evaluation. I mentioned that you have to be qualified for an H-1B. That all comes into play in this first phase where you fill out your nomination form or your company fills it out for you. We then collect transcripts, resumes, and your diplomas to make sure that you're qualified for a specialty occupation in the United States. If we say this works, we see a clear path forward here, and your company or your benefactor will sign a contract with us to support your fellowship. We then will move into a 6 to 8 week process of petition development, filing, and approval. We have only received 2 RFEs in the last 6 months, so we feel really good about the fact that you will not receive an RFE, but of course, this is immigration, nothing's guaranteed. We have a 99% approval rate, but again, nothing is guaranteed. We do try our best to create a lot of certainty around the process, and that's because we have been putting together these petitions for the last 6 years. So we know exactly, what we're doing here, and the jobs themselves are really legitimate and we're compliant with how we built out the programming. So that's why we have the approval rates that we have there. As soon as we get the approval, you then are able to start your fellowship program, and your full-time employer is able to file a concurrent cap-exempt H-1B for full-time work. So we partner with the law firm that would be filing the visa for your company for the full-time employer, and we make sure they have all the documents that they need to file. So what are you doing for 5 hours a week? And why do we require that you have experience mentoring or working with students? Why are we looking for individuals with something to share, some value to share with students? It's because we hire individuals for 5 hours per week to train the future US workforce. The idea with our Build Fellowship program is not just to create a pathway for all of you to stay here and build careers. It's also to train American students and some international students at US colleges and universities to be the workforce of tomorrow in these high demand, high growth fields. And so all of our fellows launch projects within their field of expertise. You can see some of the projects here that have been launched by our fellows. You see the fellows' names, they're the ones leading the projects, and all of these projects were scoped within their niche area that they are an expert in. So you scope your own projects within your field that you launch for students. They're called build projects. They give students real industry experience. And one of the really important things to note here, when you are talking to an employer about why this fellowship is a good path for you and a good choice for the company, please note, and I always note when I'm in company conversations, that students are getting hands-on work experience and training from the projects that you're launching during your fellowship. This is pipeline development for the companies. You are helping them build pipeline of students who understand the work that you do, who have critical skills needed to do the job. And that is all what, companies invest a lot into pipeline development and human resources, sourcing talent. And this is a really good way for you to participate and add value to that process. The financial commitment is very important. We talked about benefactors who can pay for this program. The benefactors can be either the company that you work for. Historically, if you've participated in any of our information sessions in the past, Open Avenues Foundation has worked historically only with companies who want to partner and retain employees. It is still the most straightforward pathway that we have. So, for you. So if you have an employer that you are currently employed at, you've proven your value, they want to keep you, the next step would be to pitch to them that they would support your fellowship program. For individuals who do not have a company that is willing to pay for this program, but would want to sponsor you to keep you, or you want to go to a company and get that job and you need them to know that you're in cap exempt H-1B status, you can have an individual benefactor support your fellowship. It cannot be you. It cannot come from your joint bank accounts or anything like that, but it certainly can be an individual who truly believes in your ability to succeed in the United States, to build your career here. It can be from a nonprofit that wants to see you succeed. It can be from another entity that wants to see you succeed in the US, but it has to be from a benefactor outside of yourself that is supporting your fellowship in the United States. The commitment is $15,000 to $18,000 upfront. We are for individuals, this is the same for individual benefactors as it is for companies. The monthly fee covers that first initial fee is due upon contracting. It includes the legal fees that we have at Open Avenues or at Dream Venture Labs or in the GW program. It also includes the administrative costs for filing that petition, including filing fees and the premium processing to file to get a response within 15 days, and the onboarding that we offer and the scoping of those projects and launching them at the universities. There's a lot that goes into that first phase. The next fees are the monthly fees. Once you start in the program, you're in the program. We file a 3-year visa, but you can leave the program after our minimum of 6 months. So some of you might be working towards your O1, but you just don't have what you need at this point to get an O1 approved. You might do that consult with Jeff, and Jeff might say, you have a 60% chance of getting an O1. And you'll be your own, you'll do your own risk analysis. You will decide, is that worth it to me? Or would I rather make an investment in a program while I build a better case for an O1 or for a green card? Many of you might be thinking of a green card path and you need an interim solution, and you can leave the program as soon as you have that solution. So you pay the monthly fees for as long as you're in the program for. Everybody's in it for a different amount of time. Those fees cover our ongoing programmatic work that we do with schools and universities to launch our education programming throughout the year. And the salary share is the last piece here. It is not an additional fee. It is a share of a total compensation package the base compensation that you've been offered by the company itself. This is a little bit different when it's an individual benefactor. I'm going to start by explaining the salary share. If you have in relation to the scenario that you have a company that wants to pay for this program and sponsor you for the cap exempt H-1B. When you have a company that wants to sponsor you, we look at the total base compensation that they offer, and we calculate what we have to pay you for the 5 hours per week at the fair wage within your field in the area of the country in which you live. And we will reduce your total compensation by that amount, and your company will pay us that portion, and you will get the remainder from them directly. So if the company offers you $100,000 in base compensation and we calculate that we have to pay you $8,000, the company will pay that $8,000 to us, and you will receive that $8,000. And then the $92,000, the remainder, will come directly from the company. So our fellows receive their total paycheck, their total compensation. It will just come from two employers. They'll have two W-2s. In a scenario where you have a benefactor, we will do the same thing, but there's no, the benefactor wasn't going to offer you a salary. So this is an additional fee. It's just that you will be getting that salary. If it was the $8,000, that's going to be paid for the fellowship, and you will receive that compensation through our payroll. So that's how the salary share works. I want to note that this is obviously a program. We're talking very technically about the pathway, the visa, the solution here. But I want to note that this is an amazing life experience for the fellows that go through our program. The individuals that are spending this time working with students and training students within their field are getting a lot of value personally and professionally from spending this time training the future workforce and sharing career experiences. And Marja is one of our fellows who has recently graduated from the program. She works for CRISPR Therapeutics in Boston, and she tells us, in this quote, just how nice it was for her to connect with students and, who are really eager to learn. And that matters a lot too. This isn't just you signing up for more work. This is actually something that our fellows typically really enjoy. So if you have questions, you can go to buildfellowship.com. There are nomination forms there. There are resources there. We just launched a new website. There's a lot of information for all of you to digest. But I see 25 questions in the chat right now, so I'm going to stop sharing. And Jeff and I are going to jump into the Q&A and keep them coming. We'll continue to answer for the remaining half hour. Evan, I really hope we talked enough about the financial costs. So that's great. The next question was, how long is the processing time to get the H-1B cap exempt if you start there on your OPT? Jeff, can you talk about OPT and how it works with consular processing or change of status?
Right. So I think it's good for you all to know that if you have OPT and you win the H-1B lottery, or if you get even if you are going to get a cap exempt through the Build Fellowship, on the H-1B petition, there's a section that says, when do you want to start H-1B status? The top choice is, please approve the H-1B petition, and if you've won the lottery, it would say automatically change me to H-1B status starting on October 1st. If you're using the Build Fellowship, it would say start me immediately in H-1B. But the second section you can check off says, please approve the H-1B petition, but don't automatically change my status to H-1B because I'm in OPT and I want time to finish it. And then you don't automatically get changed, and you can start your H-1B status when you choose to, when you finish the OPT. So that's a strategic thing for those mostly who win the lottery. But as the question says, if it's a cap exempt organization and you start there on your OPT, and now they're going to file a cap exempt H-1B, it really is the exact same requirements and same processing time as a regular H-1B. currently H-1Bs are taking 10 months to adjudicate. And so just about everybody would pay the premium processing fee if you're changing status from F1 to H-1B, and then they will make a decision in 15 calendar days. Excuse me, they just changed the law to say 15 business days.
No, opposite, I think.
No, calendar days are faster, so they made it slower. So it's
Oh, yes,
business
yes, yes, yes.
business days. And I think I think that's the answer to that question.
Yep. So, we're changing for any fellow in our program. We're doing in OPT in the US, we're doing a change of status from OPT to cap exempt H-1B. So our processing times are 6 to 8 weeks. We recommend that you come to the fellowship, application process at least 3 months prior to you having your OPT expire, so we can make sure that there's really a limited gap in employment. If you fall into your grace period, this is totally still doable that we file as long, during that grace period. But the ideal is that we are able to file ahead of that so you don't have to stop working, because you do once you hit that grace period. The next question is, can we provide a pamphlet and the inflow slide and the slides to show employers? Yes, absolutely. And my team on the call will note that we will send, we're definitely going to send the recording, but we'll send our guide of how to talk about this to employers in the follow-up after this. Pollock, you asked, how long initially do you have to work for these 4 organizations to get the H-1B? So Jeff, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So, Pollock, I think you're a little confused because, or maybe you're asking, Pollock, how long would one be working for one of the 4 cap exempt organizations to get the H-1B? Well, as soon as the cap exempt organization files for you, and if they pay the premium processing fee, which the Build Fellowship does, you're going to be most likely approved within 15 business days. If you're asking, how do you then get a regular H-1B by winning the lottery? Well, you have to do it by winning the lottery. By the way, I think there's an important point that we haven't talked about. Even after you're approved by the Build Fellowship for a cap exempt H-1B, and you're working for the Build Fellowship, and your own company has filed their concurrent H-1B, and you're working for them full-time and Build Fellowship part-time, and everything's great, you surely still want to enter the H-1B lottery every year, because you're certainly better off having won the lottery than not. If you win the lottery, that means you can go to any organization because you don't have to be counted again once you win the lottery. And also it means your employer can stop paying the monthly fee to Open Avenues or Build. So you still want to be filing for the H-1B lottery every chance you get. The next question is, if I file a non-cap exempt H-1B, that would mean you won the lottery. I can still work for a lottery H-1B company?
I think he's asking, I think he's saying, I don't know, you might have to hop in here, because I think you just answered it. I think it was about the moving. Can you still, I don't actually know what this is saying.
I think you mistyped the first sentence. You don't mean if I file a non-cap exempt H-1B, you mean if you file a cap exempt H-1B, such as through the Build Fellowship without winning the lottery, I can still work for a lottery H-1B company, meaning your full-time employer who had just entered the lottery for you but lost. The answer is yes, but your full-time employer has to file the concurrent H-1B, and then you can keep both jobs. You cannot stop working at the cap exempt organization, because if you do, the U.S. Immigration Service will void the approval they had just given to your company, who was only allowed to get that H-1B because you were working for a cap exempt organization.
Yep. Next question was, can I do this if I have an LLM? degree? The answer is yes. We are working with lawyers currently now to get these to do fellowships, and you will train within your field of law students who are studying law. Next question was getting your company to support the full-time sponsorship. You will have to go pitch this to your company and get them to either hop on a call with us and learn more, which is, I think, the most ideal scenario. If they're willing to at least get on a call with us, they will understand the full extent of this program and model. But we will give you tools to have that conversation,
The
unless you
next,
have an individual benefactor. But even if you have an individual benefactor and you want to work full time, you're going to have to go talk to the employer about the fact that you have a cap exempt H-1B, and that they would file a concurrent cap exempt H-1B, which frankly is a very easy thing for them to do once you're in cap exempt status. Anything to add there, Jeff?
no, I did want to go on to the next question. I
Great.
have a valid I-20 F1 status visa for the next couple of months. Will I need to go back to my home country to process this visa? Probably, because I don't think you're going to have time to process through build fellowship before you run out of lawful stay here. If you have 2 months of F1 OPT left, well, actually, it doesn't say OPT. I have a valid I-20 F1 visa for the next couple of months. I guess you're not on OPT, you're taking classes still. When you're done, you do have a 60-day grace period. So that might give you 4 months. And I suppose if you start like today or tomorrow with an application to build fellowship, it is possible that build fellowship in the 4-month period could file its cap exempt H-1B petition for you while you're still here in legal status, still within your 60-day grace period. And if they do that, you don't need to leave. You can stay here while you're waiting for the cap exempt H-1B with the build fellowship to be approved. And they will automatically change your status to H-1B. And then that would immediately lead to your full-time employer you'd like to work for filing their concurrent H-1B.
Mm-hmm. IT experience, but no teaching experience, that's fine. We're going to do it in our application process. We ask that you record a video. We just want to see that you're able to communicate effectively, English proficient, and are able to, speak. There's a really, people sometimes get nervous about those videos, but really it's just for us to get to know you and see who you are. And you definitely, don't need teaching experience, but we do want to see that you have skills to communicate to students. Civil engineering degree definitely qualifies if you are working in that field. So if you're working in a field that requires a civil engineering degree, then absolutely.
I do want to add, there is a lot of examples of USCIS saying that a civil engineering degree is the wrong degree for a software developer job. It is not related, and we've won some of those and lost some of those arguments. So it's a tough one. Unless you're actually going to be employed as a civil engineer, then it's a perfect specialty occupation degree. Danielle, I just want to jump back up because we missed one question. Can I do part-time fellowship on STEM OPT? Nobody would do that because the point of the Build Fellowship is to help people who have run out of STEM OPT. Because if you have STEM OPT, you're working legally. You wouldn't want to
People
pay.
are looking for places to do their STEM OPT, that will take on OPT individuals, and we're not doing that at this time.
Thank you.
But I'm glad we got that one answered. Okay, what happens if I have a bachelor's and 2 previous years of work experience in field A and a post-grad degree and job offer in an unrelated field B?
Is the unrelated field B unrelated to your bachelor's degree and unrelated to your postgraduate degree. If the job offer is unrelated to any degree you have, that's a problem. But it's totally fine, and we often do this, that we go back to somebody's bachelor degree. For instance, if you got a bachelor degree in computer science and a master's degree in European art history, we can still file an H-1B based on your bachelor's degree in computer science because the job requires that degree.
Yeah. Okay. If I have a current job right now and my EAD ends in July, can I become a fellow if my current company does not want to apply for an H-1B? If I get an H-1B with Open Avenues and switch to a different company, does that allow me to work and stay in the US? So
That presents a lot of problems, Danielle, about because the new company may not have agreed to pay the fees for Open Avenues.
Yeah, so you would probably need an individual benefactor in this scenario. If your company's not willing to sponsor your H-1B, they're definitely not going to be willing to sponsor your cap exempt H-1B unless you can tell them that this is a de-risked process. Some companies have trouble doing H-1B because they think they won't be able to keep you, because they think it's a randomized system. If that's their fear, you can tell them that, this is a more certain pathway for you. And this is a good way to move forward. But if you have an individual benefactor, you can join the program and then go to a different employer at that time. You will have access to the presentation. Someone's asking if they will. We will pitch this to your employer. Someone asked, can you pitch this to our employer? And the answer is yes. We have a partnerships team that will have conversations with your employer if you set up the call. So you can have them nominate you, or you can nominate yourself, and you would essentially get put into the process. And we will drop the link in the chat, or someone from my team will drop the link into the chat for how to nominate yourself. We're part of the process is talking to your company. Can the benefactor for the program be a non-US citizen?
Yeah, just yes. That's definitely not a requirement. It just cannot be you. And that brings me to the question above that Danielle skipped, and it's one of my favorite questions so far. Can the funds come from POPs? Here, the law says the funds cannot come from you. It doesn't say it can't come from POPs or mama or anyone else. So Danielle, we are taking cases where the individual benefactor is a parent or a cousin. It cannot come from you, and you cannot give money because the Immigration Service, if they conduct an audit, they're going to look at that. And so we're not working with people who say, okay, I'm going to give my cousin the $18,000 and let's go. That does not work.
Yeah, totally. And Evan's question is, can there be multiple benefactors who contribute to the cost? Yeah, start a crowdfunding campaign. Like start a campaign for your fellowship. It just can't come from your bank account. So if your family member wants to start a crowdsourcing campaign and create a fund for your fellowship, amazing. And Jeff, do you agree with me that would work if it's multiple individuals contributing, as long as it's not coming from them?
It definitely works and it's legal, but Danielle, does that add an issue? Because who's signing?
There would need to be one benefactor signing the agreement,
Right.
Evan, but absolutely, can there be contributions from others? For sure, on the back end. But we have to sign an agreement. Thank you, Jeff. We do sign an agreement with the benefactor, one benefactor. How can a benefactor apply for you? Can it be your mentor? Yeah. Again, these are people that believe in your career and your growth, and they can sign an agreement, they can nominate you on our website. Again, I don't know if anyone from our team has dropped those links in yet. I'll do it in 1 second. Jeff, do you want to take the next one while I do that?
Yeah. If my employer has multiple employees that are in need of this path, such as 10 to 12 per year, would it be possible to explore a lower average per employee financial commitment for the sponsor? If your company has 10 to 12, bring it on. Let them have a conversation with Build Fellowship, probably will be with Danielle. And I think it is definitely possible. I don't think either Danielle or I could say absolutely, definitely, but it's definitely possible that that Build Fellowship could offer some package if they're going to have 10 to 12 from one company per year. But please, that would be an employer who definitely should have a conversation with Build.
Yeah, feel free to connect us. And, we've talked about this with companies before. Typically, companies will start with one at the normal price and they'll make sure that this works. And then they would move forward with doing this for more individuals once they see the value. So that's typically what we've seen. For companies that have employees who have been working already for several years for the company, can we use the Build Fellowship for them? Absolutely. Jeff, do you want to talk about, other visas that people transition from to cap exempt H-1B like J-1 or L-1?
Yeah, we have people who were in L1 status and were laid off, or they might have even qualified for O1, but they don't have an employer to sponsor them. The cap exempt H-1B is a great solution for people who need a relatively fast solution. We certainly even can do this for people who aren't even in the United States, but they have an employer who wants them badly, and the employer is willing to sponsor the fellowship. And we bring them in that way with a cap exempt H-1B.
Yep. We have a lot of folks who are transitioning from J1. We do have some folks who were in an L1 prior, and OPT are the most common, and then folks coming from outside the United States. Do we get paid for training students on a part-time basis? The answer is yes, you get paid, but it's part of the salary that you were receiving from a full-time employer. If you have a benefactor, then it is additional funds coming from the benefactor. If you have an individual benefactor, if you have a company benefactor, it's part of the compensation that you've been offered by that company. Are we required to pay both the one-time fee and monthly fee? Yes. They're for different things. The one-time fee covers all the legal work and the process of setting up the fellowship, and the ongoing fees pay for the program itself on an ongoing basis. Can you elaborate more on the salary share and the $1,300 needed to pay per month? Sure. $18,000 is the initiation fee. We'll go over the pricing one more time because I see 2 questions on it. $18,000 is the initiation fee. It includes the legal work that we do. It includes setting up the fellowship. It includes premium processing fees, government filing fees, and additional fees for the nonprofit that, for Open Avenues Foundation to file these for as many people as we do. The fees add up. Costs are high. That is why we have that initial fee. There's an ongoing $1,300 program fee. That's because everyone's in our program for a different amount of time, and we have an entire team working on education programming that we run with and manage all of your fellowships. And so to run all of that operational work and the education work that we do with our universities, we charge a $1,300 a month fee to be in the program. That is throughout the time that you're in the program. It ends when you leave the program, which could be after 6 months. And we have some individuals who, are in the program for that minimum amount of time. We have some in the program for the 3 years that we filed the visa for. We did just file an extension for someone who lost the lottery again and needed to move beyond that 3 years into an extension and going into a 4th year in the program. Very rare. Most people, we have an average of 1.5 years in the program. The salary share for when you work for a company is a portion of the total salary that they offer. So you can watch the recording and listen to it again, but if they offer you your base compensation. We're going to work with them to take a portion of that base comp. It'll be paid through the Build Fellowship, and you will receive it. So you receive the total. Can I enroll in the fellowship if I don't have a job currently? My STEM OPT is expiring October 2024. That's a great question. We are considering making exceptions for individuals if they have a job offer, if they have a company they're building. There are some circumstances in which this makes sense. You can certainly apply. We'll want to see that you have a benefactor. We'll want to see that you have a path towards full-time employment. We're not going to be taking individuals into the program when we don't believe that you will have a full-time job anytime soon. Is there a list of companies that are already familiar with the Build Fellowship? Yes. If you go to our website, and I'll drop it in a minute, there is a place where we have a list of all of the companies who have partnered with us. That's a great place to start. You know, we have the ability, you know, you definitely can take a look at the companies who have sponsored individuals who know how this program works. So I will drop that in there in a few.
But Danielle, I want to add to that, because this question comes from a person who's thinking, oh, if company X has already sponsored somebody, that I'm going to go pursue a job there, so they'll sponsor me. Let's be real.
Right.
Companies are not left and right sponsoring people for the Build Fellowship. They're mostly doing it for trusted people they know and want to work with. This is a lot of money, and they will only do it if they find this is an incredibly valuable employee or an incredibly valuable new hire. It's not something any company would just do as a cost of business of taking on a software developer.
Yep. After I get a cap exempt H-1B, can my employer still file for the cap lottery in subsequent years? Yes, every single one of our fellows enters into the lottery. Next question. How does one find a university that might be willing to hire or sponsor someone for the fellowship? How do you find a benefactor? So you will need to find a benefactor that is, you know, going to support we don't support you finding a benefactor. Historically and typically, this is a company that wants to hire you. We believe that, you know, individuals who have proven value to companies in the US should absolutely have a pathway to stay here. And that's why we built this in the first place. You don't need to find a university. We are already partnered with universities, so that is not on you. But finding a benefactor is on you. We don't have individuals who provide those scholarships at this point, something in the future that I hope we can have more of. Cool. Can you switch your status to a tourist visa when your EAD ends? I think that's just a general question.
If you're talking about an EAD that was based on OPT, yes, you have a 60-day grace period after the last date of your EAD when your OPT ends. And you, in the 60 days, you either need to leave or you can file for another status. And this whole seminar is about using that time period to change to cap exempt H-1B. But could you change to be a tourist? Yes, but it's not always so simple. You have to have a good reason why. You have to prove that you are going to leave and return, and you have a home, family, or job to return to. And you have to definitely show you have enough money to take care of yourself without working illegally while you're here as a tourist.
Cool. Someone's asking about a pretty intricate scenario. I think we were pretty clear about who qualifies for this, but if you're on STEM OPT, you have an employer, and you are qualified for an H-1B, definitely apply for the fellowship. Okay. When my sponsor employer needs to pay, the sponsor or employer needs to pay the initiation fee upon contracting. So as soon as we go through the evaluation and contract, that's when they pay. We will send out a follow-up with the information needed to share this with your colleagues or with your employer. Someone's asking about O1 visas, Jeff? Is there a limit on number of O1s? How many O1s are issued a year?
There is no limit on the number of O1s. They can issue 1,000 or 100,000 O1s because there's no limit. For how many years does USCIS issue O1 visas? An O1 approval is good for 3 years the first time, and then the law says there can be an indefinite number of 1-year extensions. However, the law also says if in addition to asking for the extension, you also inform USCIS that you're amending something about the prior approval, then you can ask for a 3-year extension. So we always amend something about the prior approval. Usually it's the job description, which normally does change over a 3-year period. And by doing that, we always get 3-year extensions over and over again for O1. There's no limit on how long you can keep extending an O1.
Cool. I'm going to rapid fire go through a couple of these questions that I know the answers to. If you're in day one CPT and you want to change to cap exempt H-1B, you absolutely can. If you want to switch jobs while you're in a cap exempt H-1B, you can. You have to have the employer that is going to, the new employer has to file a cap exempt H-1B for you as well, and must partner to pay those monthly fees and the salary share, but absolutely possible. Does the time spent on cap exempt H-1B take away from the 6 years of total H-1B that you have? Yes. Cap exempt H-1B years count towards your total time in H-1B.
Danielle, I want to jump to the question above that. It's such an important question.
Perfect.
Do we need to exit the country and get H-1B stamped before my current employer files concurrent H-1B? So if you are inside the US, let's say F1 OPT, and you now get an approval of the Open Avenues H-1B, and you are in cap exempt H-1B in the US, no, you do not need to leave the country, nor should you. We want your concurrent employer to immediately file their concurrent H-1B petition. And the reason is because if that can happen before you depart the US, then when you go to get your H-1B visa, you can get the H-1B for your concurrent, under your concurrent employer's name. And that's either one works, whether the visa is in the name of Open Avenues or your concurrent employer, but we advise you to get it in the name of the full-time employer for so many different reasons. So you definitely want them to file the petition before you would leave the US.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, more questions. Does this work for someone in public health? You can definitely apply. We had one individual who had a public health degree, but actually had a concentration of courses in market research. And we ended up doing a market research fellowship. And then one other person who had a concentration of statistics courses, and we ended up doing a statistics specialty occupation. So it's possible. Is it possible for your employer to file a concurrent H-1B? That's definitely the whole point of this program. Is the fellowship terminable? Can you terminate the fellowship? Yes, you can definitely terminate the fellowship. Someone asked an interesting question about our audit that we had from USCIS. We have them every year. It's very routine at this point. They want to know that nothing we're doing is fraudulent, and it's not. So as usual, it went well. We've received 100% approval rate since that audit. So that was not shocking to us, but I wrote about it on LinkedIn because I think it's important for transparency purposes. Are there any travel restrictions while you're on the cap exempt H-1B? If you're going to leave the US, you have to get your visa stamp at a consulate in your home country. So you will have to do that to re-enter the US. That is the only phase that you have to think about when you are leaving the US, but then you have freedom of travel. Let's see, what else can we, last question. Jeff, do you see a good one? Emmanuel asked if he's the chairman of a nonprofit organization. Emmanuel, you can definitely reach out. That's an interesting scenario, and we can chat about it.
I just want to say that a lot of people are saying, I don't have an employer yet, and my OPT is coming to an end. Can I still be part of the Build Fellowship? And as we've been trying to say, yes, but you need a benefactor who's going to pay all these costs because you cannot pay. So it is definitely possible. We're talking to people every day and taking in new cases every day, just like you. You might, if your last day of OPT is October, I don't know that I would sign up yet with an individual benefactor because you might have an employer ready to do this before then. But yeah, you do, and the timing is you really should be talking to Open Avenues a good 4 months before your last day of work. Please don't wait to the last minute to reach out.
That's a good spot to end at. And thank you all so much for joining. We really appreciate your engagement and your questions. And we will be sending out the presentation after. We have lots of webinars over the next month. So look out for my LinkedIn posts and Jeff's LinkedIn posts about them, or follow the Build Fellowship on LinkedIn. We will have a lot more of these opportunities to ask questions and get them answered. You can also nominate yourself if you are ready to do that. There's no commitment, but you can start the application process in that way. Great. Have a wonderful night, everyone. And thanks again. Take care.